Good evening, I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Meg Gatto. Tonight, the restoration work at the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris could help in the restoration of the iconic St. Louis Cathedral in New Orleans.
Yeah, our Dave McNamara is in Paris and has more on the meeting today between New Orleans and French architects in this special Saving St. Louis report.
A team of New Orleans architects was given a rare look inside the fire-damaged Notre Dame Cathedral here in Paris. Their goal was to find out what lessons have been learned with the restoration work here that could help with the renovations of St. Louis Cathedral in New Orleans.
Our cathedral in New Orleans goes like this.
Today's meeting was arranged by New Orleans Saints and Pelicans owner Gail Benson. She is a big supporter of efforts to repair and renovate the New Orleans landmark.
Well, I think when you collaborate with other people and work together, I think you can gain a lot of knowledge. And I've gained knowledge just working with the fundraising efforts of Notre Dame.
St. Louis Cathedral architects Kevin Morris and Andre Villery had to put on protective clothing to enter the fire-damaged Notre Dame. The site was contaminated with lead during the catastrophic fire 4 years ago.
So in New Orleans, we have to go about the same methodical process of restoring the cathedral back the way it was. Our approach is not about designing or changing the design of the cathedral. It's more so about creating a preservation of the cathedral and restoring the authenticity that was there before.
From a distance, New Orleans St. Louis Cathedral looks magnificent. It has been an iconic landmark from almost the founding of the city 300 years ago. But take a closer look, and you see the decay on the outside. And inside, you can see how moisture is causing the paint to peel. So the leaks that you have in the wall, that's coming from a wall that was built, what, in 1850, about 175 years ago?
1850.
How do you fix something like that?
You chip away the loose plaster. You check the bricks that are behind the plaster. If the bricks are failing, you have to tuck point the mortar joints in the brickwork, and then you apply new plaster.
Andre Villery is the longtime architect of the cathedral.
The weight of the towers has caused this end of the building to settle.
He is plotting the sinking of the foundation, and he has mapped the cracks in the walls.
We do try to make sure that there's nothing going on in the building that would give us pause or have any concerns about structural failures.
And high above the artwork on the ceiling, the plaster is slowly decaying. You can see the damage from inside the attic.
And you can see the plaster keys right here, which are deteriorated. And that's what holds the plaster in place.
In some cases, steel girders and new boards are used to secure the old wooden beams that have been chewed and weakened by termites. It's an ongoing struggle to manage problems and preserve a structure that has been the centerpiece of New Orleans for nearly 175 years. Here at Notre Dame, they have collected nearly $1 billion in pledges and donations to pay for the restoration of this cathedral. In New Orleans, fundraising is also underway to pay for future renovations and repairs at the historic New Orleans Cathedral. In Paris, I'm Dave McNamara, Fox 8 Local First.